Hello everyone, welcome to another round of Chitter Chatter. Today we're going to chit chat with Sammar Shabir. And I'm very excited to chit chat with her on her current book, The Barred Window. Well, I have read this book and I have so much to say about this book and ask her so much about every character and the story and a lot more. So I hope you enjoy this chitter chatter and I hope also you enjoy the book as much as I have enjoyed. The review of the book is also coming up very soon. Okay, so welcome to Chitter Chatter, and we are so glad to have you here. There's so many things that I want to ask you and know from you because, like I said, when I finished The Bar Window, I didn't feel like I finished a book. I literally felt like I stepped out of a memory, and though it's been like a day or more, but I'm still somewhere engulfed in those pages. So tell us all about the book to begin with.
Hmm. To be very honest, when I started writing, I did not write with the aim of publishing. I didn't even know whether I was going to complete the manuscript or no. In my head, I was trying to resolve something. And as I did, much to my surprise, I found a completed manuscript towards the end. So that is how it started. And then when a couple of friends read it, and especially my friend who's an editor as well, he suggested that I pitch it because it was, according to them, that good. And, as a debut, as somebody who's not a professional writer, you struggle with self esteem and you're like, मैंने जो भी लिखा it's trash. But when I did, surprisingly, I mean, much to my surprise, it has exceeded my expectations on multiple levels.
Well, I'm glad that you did not trash it, and I'm very glad that the editor friend said that please go ahead and edit it because it is something about this story that just stays with you. And though the main characters are Marlene and Naima, but I even fell in love with Babajan. I fell in love with Zaida too. Like you are just in that story. It's like that story just engulfs you. And tell me, since it's exceeded your expectation, what does it feel like for you when your readers say things?
Since I have a slow processing, initially I felt like nothing. I felt completely numb. I was like, chalo, ho raha hai. Whenever for a person like me who's a little, because like I said, as a debut, you're really unsure of yourself. So I was always looking for the next milestone. I wouldn't stop, slow down to appreciate what had happened. So initially, because it was just my friends who had read it, I thought they were just trying to, coddle me, trying to be nice. But as time has passed, ever since publishing has happened, it's been 2 months that it has come out internationally, and a month, not even a complete month, that it has come out in Pakistan. And it was sitting on the chart toppers on number two, the list. So now I feel validated. Now I'm like, अच्छा यार, अच्छा किया मैंने.
Like you just said, Abhi, कि you had actually started writing the story to solve some things, and in return, एक पूरी manuscript बन गई. So, do you remember that exact moment when you started penning things down?
It was after COVID. Towards the end, मुझे COVID हो गया. Initially, मैं सारा दिन I did not observe proper protocol, and my friends and family used to be very, upset with me. कि I was so careless about it. But towards the end, I had a very bad case of COVID. And when I did, I slowed down enough, and मुझे एक in the aftermath एक full blown identity crisis हो गया था. So to resolve that, like because I was dealing with the concepts of identity and belonging myself, I think those are very much manifested in the book. That is how it started for me, and I only knew two things at that time when I started off with the book. I knew that I could write tolerably well, and I knew that I could speak tolerably well. So I started, and that is how it all panned out for me.
If the barred window were a feeling for you and not a book, what would it be?
Resolution.
Nice. I agree with that. I would second that since I've read the book. Before
Yeah,
you were an
towards the end
author,
at least.
that, yeah, the last page, I'm telling you, it's like something I've gone back to a couple of times because, obviously you have realized that during the story, But when you've highlighted it in the end, the resolution, it just like magnifies it to another level.
I'm glad it resonated with you. I hope it would with many people, because I think as young adults, ये जो identity crisis का phase आया, ironically, it came a lot later in my life on me. But I think a lot of young adults are going through the exact same phase. You know, when they're transitioning from youth to adulthood, that is when it strikes them as well. So I think it might resonate a lot with people who are going through transitions.
I think it does. I agree with you because at some point or the other, no, earlier or later, you've gone through this transition phase. Like, I think everyone at some point has.
Absolutely. Everybody has, at some point has, yes.
So
And
before
that is
you,
when you start, reinventing your concept of self and belonging. So, yeah.
so before you were an author, you have obviously been a storyteller because otherwise, इतनी अच्छी story हमको नहीं मिलती.
I have been a storyteller since childhood. I would entertain my cousins and friends with the most fantastical, bizarre stories ever, and they would believe them. So I think ये germ मेरा पहले से था. I thought it was a defect, but over time it turned into an asset. So yes, I have been a storyteller.
Did writing come to you as a comfort, an escape, or an expression?
Neither. Because to be very honest, as opposed to what I have heard from other authors, they like the process. For me, it was a very difficult one in the sense that I had to, because when you're writing a book and when you're writing a blog piece or a piece of content writing, whatever, it's a completely different thing, because writing a book requires math as well as art. It's like an architectural process. So it required me to grow, expand, adapt at multiple levels. Like I had to sit through the discomfort, because when you're initially starting off, आप एक adrenaline में होते हो, वो honeymoon phase, because I'm going to write something. One third of the way that wears off, and you understand, oh my God, this is work, and this is serious, serious work. So when you understand that, I think it is just tenacity that carries you forward. So writing the book wasn't a very easy process for me. And then again, like I said, I was trying to resolve something in my head. So resolution is never easy. Hence, the process was very difficult. And as I sit down and work on my second book, I'm like hoping, fingers crossed, it's easier this time.
I'm sure we also have now a lot of expectations from you for the next one because this one
No
is like.
pressure, no pressure.
So, how much of you is exists in Marlene and how much of you exists in Naima?
It's a very interesting question that you asked that, because Naima and Marlene are very close to me. I, ironically, since Naima is the antagonistic character, it is very ironic that I put all my good qualities in Naima and all my bad ones in Marlene. I mean, when you read, you wouldn't expect that, but I did. So Naima and Marlene are like extensions of my darkness and my light, and that is how they came into being.
Since you've already started writing your next, has your relationship with writing changed after publishing the first novel?
Absolutely, absolutely. This time I'm much prepared. Like the first time round, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. I made a lot of mistakes, especially when it came to pitching. When you're writing with the mindset of publishing, it is a completely different world, because you understand that publishing is ultimately a business. It's not art. Art, it stops being art the moment you're done with the manuscript. When the process of editing, when the process of querying and all of that starts, it stops being art, because the publishers, the agent who represents you need to know that this book is going to sell, make the money. So it has to be sellable. It has to have a clear market, a clear end game. It has to resolve it. It has to close a loop, follow a certain architecture. So this time round, I'm much well equipped. I know how I function as a writer myself now, when jo writer's block hota hai and all the setbacks, now I know what I need to do in order to push through. So this time round, it's going to be much easier. It is, and it's going to be, yes.
Were there any moments or doubts that came to you while writing this novel?
Oh, absolutely. All the time, all the time. I was very like as a debut, I thought whatever because the book has gone to through multiple transitions itself. Once you write something, it needs to be jo aap sculpture dekhte ho, the initial form is nothing like the end product. So it had to go through multiple rounds of editing that I did myself. I think 12 rounds to maine khud kiye honge. Every time I would write, I thought it was very bad. And I'd be like, and especially when you're being fed the same words, the same story over and over again, you grow tired of it. तो आपको अच्छा नहीं लगता whatever you've written. But and then yes, I feared failure. But more than failure, more than anything, I feared visibility. So doubts, I have had plenty. I even considered writing under a pseudonym,
Oh,
but I'm so glad I did not.
I'm glad too.
Yeah. Yeah, I did consider that. So visibility was the biggest thing I struggled with.
So, with all these doubts, what finally gave you the courage to let the world read something so tender out there?
Hmm. What gave me the courage? Uh, what did was writing the book has taught me one more thing. Um, Anything you set out to do, whether it's writing a book, whether it's starting a business, whether whatever, any pursuit in life, it will require you to show up no matter how you feel, whether you're feeling uninspired, bored, happy, fatigued, or whatever, because life is not going to wait for you to adjust. Showing up, even if you're feeling fear, is what actually helped me finish the manuscript in the first place. So I decided to carry that attitude forward when it came to publishing and visibility and the fear of failure. I was like, hota hai jo hoye, I'll push through regardless. So I showed up. That is how I think I overcame to some extent my fear of failure and visibility.
The barred window is such a powerful image, and when it did stop being just a window, did it become a metaphor for you?
It did. The barred window is actually one of the things that actually existed in my childhood because I've carried this memory of a window from my childhood. It used to be set in exact same the boundary wall I've described in the book. It was set the same way, and I used to be the child who used to sit beside it and think of all the adventures I could have if I ever went out. So the book deals with militancy as well. It is set as a result of the Talibanization of Afghanistan. There was a huge spillover in Pakistan, especially the northern areas and northwestern areas, across the borders of Afghanistan and further south. They were affected a lot. So I had to portray that, and most of the literature that you read from this area is set in the thick of things. None of it is set from the perspective of a silent bystander. That is how I witnessed it. So while I aim to portray how the country bled at that time and how I experienced the war, I also wanted to show an internal turmoil within the estate, the feeling of containment and isolation. And both these plots had to run in parallel with no intersecting points. The barred window was the only link to the external plot and the internal plot, and towards a certain point in the book, they converge the plots. So yes, it does serve as a metaphor. It is the window to your escape, your path to belonging, or whatever, however you may interpret it. I left it open to the reader's interpretation, but yes, it does serve as a metaphor.
Do you think we all have our own barred windows in life?
Oh, absolutely. And the biggest struggle is the struggle within the barred window, you know, because the external struggle is caused by people um, who are not whom you're not very attached to. So the internal conflict is caused by people you're well attached to. And that is why it is so severe in intensity.
Was the window always meant to represent confinement or also protection?
No, the window remains the only thing that gives a sense of security, especially since we witness the events in the book through Marlene's lens, her point of view. So for her, it does give a fleeting sense of security, and it is fleeting because the war does eventually take place towards the end of the book. So for Marlene, yes, but overall, that is not what it was meant to represent. It was more meant to represent, the gateway to danger.
Yeah, did the meaning of the window change for you while writing the book? Like, I mean, when you started and then there is a whole process. So, at any point, did the meaning change or it just remained the same right from the beginning?
Hmm, that is a very interesting question. um the window, funnily enough, even though the window no longer exists, the real barred window, the one that I actually modeled this one after, that no longer exists, but I have dreamt about it for so many years over time. I think that window did carry a significance for me, which is why it stayed in my subconscious. Um, so that window became the focal point around which I span the narrative. उसके साथ फिर मैंने whatever, like, my my fascination with symbolism and all, I even used a lock mechanism, everything. That window basically was a canvas for me to play around with. I could do whatever I wanted because that was the focal point of the book. Uh, so, no, I think for me, the window represents to this date what it did initially, my canvas to express myself,
You know,
the good and the bad.
in the like there is a contrast. The world outside the window is gloomy and there's so much going on, but the estate inside feels safe, and there is a different contrast going on. So how did you maintain the balance?
This was intentionally done because I wanted to portray the tenderness of childhood and the brutality of war. And over time, as things escalate outside, things escalate within the estate as well. So, if you've read Lord of the Flies, there was this concept where the children are stranded on an island and there's a World War II going. And as the World War II escalates on the outside, there is an escalation of events within. I was very fascinated with that concept, and I think I was a little inspired. So, while the book represents the tenderness of childhood and the brutality of war, I think it blends both the two because of how children interpret such things. So, yes, that is, I guess, the closest I got to that point.
When we talk about this, obviously the whole lens is through children, and the moment children come, we all get a little emotional. So, was there a specific reason that you knew that, this having these children as your main protagonists and antagonists, you thought, no, no, it has to be children, and I need to tell the story through the lens of them?
For some odd reason, I fancy myself as a literary fiction writer because my style is like that. But I tend to gravitate a lot towards coming of age literature, like The Kite Runner, like To Kill a Mockingbird, like The Railway Children, like Lord of the Flies, and which is why I love anime because the protagonists are all young, at the cusp of adulthood, coming of age. So since I have so far consumed, not entirely, but most of the content I do in the form of young adult, I think that is what I did gravitate towards. It made the most sense because this was the genre I was most comfortable with. Even though my next book is not young adult, this book turned out to be young adult crossover with literary fiction.
So, as a reader, I felt a message does not scream loud. It comes as a silent whisper, which I personally loved about the book. Because, sometimes what happens is if it comes out too loud, it kind of also scares you. And this very subtly comes and, puts across a point loud and clear, but in a whisper format. So, was that intentional?
It was very intentional because while I wanted to resolve the plot, I had no intention of resolving the emotion because I wanted to leave it to the reader's interpretation. That is how I think true resonance is created. Because, like I said, whatever is addressed in the book, the themes of identity, transitions, belonging, rebellion, the search for oneself, I think everyone at a certain point in their lives have gone through that, and however the reader wishes to interpret it, I think that is what makes literature very interesting.
You know, there are so many moments which feel so heavy as a reader. So I'm sure as a writer, there must be a lot to you. What were the moments where you had to step away emotionally?
uh the book is written as a tightening of a noose, you know. It starts with a little bit of, because it starts towards the start, the book starts with the start of the summer, and the war is building up as well as the events inside. I guess as you read on, the tension builds up, things escalate. So, yes, it did sort of affect me a little bit as well, but I was already in that phase. It was like an outlet for me. I was already in that zone, that, you know, moody, dark phase. So I think that reflected a lot in the book. But there have been a couple of scenes, especially when it comes to the chess society, the system of chess, which is based on a system of, it's like a hierarchy structure where you have to present an offering to the queen and the king of the chess society. Elsewise, there's going to be a demotion or a promotion on the logic of chess from, pawn to knighthood to bishophood and so on and so forth. So yes, a few scenes when because like if you have read, the games eventually turn darker. Some of those scenes have been very difficult to write, and while I was writing, I would fancy this book, in a cinematic point of view. I was like, agar iski movie ban jaye. So I think agar bani, I would be very interested in that. But agar bani, I would have to struggle a little bit with PR because a few scenes are macabre. That's why.
Which scene stayed with you? It's a very difficult question, I'm sure, because there's so much that is there in the book. If you ask me also to zero down on one scene, is going to be difficult. But if still we have to zero down on one scene that stayed with you long after you wrote, which one was it?
I think it's not a scene specifically, but a narrative, an isolated narrative where when Aslan enters the picture, how Marlene takes it, the feeling of being left behind. That chapter stayed with me a long time. I enjoyed it, and I think that is one of the most powerful chapters of the book.
Did the ending come naturally to you, or you had to struggle with like the last chapter?
I struggled with writing the ending definitely because the ending, like Marlene in the ending says, I have narrated these events for this purpose alone. The ending resolves the plot, as opposed to a story of war and struggle, it becomes a story of resolution, of transitions, of resilience. So while I knew what I had to do in the end, while that was what I was aiming for from the start, because the ending is the point where everything is, the point of the book in itself. But writing it was terribly hard because everything weighed on how it was delivered. And it had to be done in a way that the reader could take the message, yet take yet understand the fact that everything cannot be resolved. Some things aren't, and I think that is why the ending stays with you.
So, are you a structured writer or an intuitive one?
Or a what?
A structured writer or an intuitive one?
I'm a very structured writer. I need to know what I'm doing. I have to plan because I cannot perform on spot. मुझे बहुत anxiety होती है. So I have to plan whatever I have to do, whatever I have to execute, like for a good 1 week. Um, Funnily enough, this is so pronounced in my writing that whenever I've struggled with a writer's block, whenever I was, because obviously that is going to happen. You're going to get stuck. You're going to feel like your writing is trash. You're going to feel like, oh, this is bland. This isn't fun. What I do when I was stuck was I would obsess over what I was struggling with, what I was stuck over. And I would think and think about it to the point where I'd get headaches because I thought so much. And then I would leave it for a week. And when I did, I would not think about it. I would not look at it. I would not work on it. But towards the end of the week, the answer would always arrive. So I am a very structured writer. Not very glamorous. It doesn't sound very glamorous, but true.
So, did you write the book chronologically or emotionally?
Huh. I wrote it chronologically. If I like to my understanding, I think I did because I did not intend to resolve any kind of emotion for the reader. I want them to work for it. So whatever emotion shows up through the plot. The chess society, the escalation of events, the war, the feeling of seclusion, um, the build-up of tension. So whatever emotion shows up, and because the protagonist is so young, the protagonist is unable to piece together those emotions, understand them, articulate them. So I guess the structure, the chronology of the book is what drives the plot, and the emotion is the result of it.
How long did the first draft take?
A year.
Okay, so then my next question, since you said you wrote like 12 changes almost, how long did the whole story take from there till the final manuscript that went for publishing?
It took me a year to write the first draft and another 6 months to edit it. So one and a
And
half years.
1.5 year. And what role did rewriting play in shaping the emotional tone?
A lot. Actually, a lot. Because the first draft was left even more vague and complex, even more open to the reader's interpretation. So when I went through a round of editing with a professional editor, खुद तो मैंने किए थे 12 times, but जो professionally I got it edited when I thought कि यार, let's just pitch it. At that time, the editor would keep telling me that this is a little too vague, a little too subtle. You have to be more open. You have to, somewhere along the way, you have to hold the reader's hand. You cannot leave them in the dark entirely, because that is what I was trying to do. Because, like you asked Pele B whether this was intentional, it was so intentional. Okay, I was in the danger of leaving the reader in the dark. So I guess from more abstract to tangible, the emotion in the book has evolved in that way
Since you
with the
started
editing.
writing,
Yes.
let's say you started writing in the COVID time, so already
Yes,
there was
towards the
a
end.
pandemic effect going on. But how did the COVID, according to you, the illness and the pandemic affect your vulnerability and the rhythm of writing?
My vulnerability, I guess, it was very sudden, to be very honest, because my prime coping mechanism has been over till that point distraction. And before COVID, it was not during COVID that that certain events transpired. It was a good while before COVID. There had been a few changes in my life, like my sister passing away, like me going through a divorce. I guess I did not process it completely or entirely or in a healthy way because I मैंने उसको humor में उड़ाया, मैंने उसको distraction. I That is how I dealt with it at that time. So when I got sick with COVID, and because there was a, like I said, the book के अंदर curfew seclusion का element है, that happened in COVID because we were under lockdown. The same lockdown wala feeling that arises in the book. What that lockdown did for me was it helped me slow down enough. And because I was sick, I was isolated, and I was very sick towards the end. Um, I think it helped me slow down to process things. And that is when I was like, oh my God, I'm looking at a mirror and it is not pretty. It was like, I was like, what's wrong with me? And then I was like, let's not open that Pandora box. But when I did, the barred window was the result of it.
So, the book's theme is basically freedom and resilience, like both of it. So, do you believe imagination is a form of resistance?
Oh, absolutely. Especially for people who find no other way of being heard. If they're not seen, if they're not heard, I think turning to the pen is the best way for them to be heard or make space for themselves. So what writing a book that is layered with undertones, I guess what the writer is trying to accomplish or achieve is voicing their opinions. And they say that writing a book is the best way a writer can tell their stories without ridiculing themselves or making an open fool of themselves. So yes, absolutely, writing a book is a sign of resilience. It is a sign of rebellion, and it is a sign of wanting to reclaim one's own narrative.
Is hope something we find or something we create, according to you?
We create everything for ourselves. So there is no I think when they say there's a light at the end of the tunnel, no, there is no light. You have to actually dig out your own path at the end of the tunnel or wherever along the tunnel. So there is no light. You have to dig it out yourself.
What kind of reader reactions has moved you the most?
What has moved me, because um I enjoy allegory, I enjoy layered complex storytelling, and I enjoy storytelling in the form of symbolism, like the chess society, like the ants symbolism that are represented in the book. I thought, for me, that was the artistic value of the book, because I had a great time writing and thinking about those, planning those out and everything. So I think those are the points of the book where I stressed upon myself. But even, after the book has been published, a lot of the conversations, like today's, have been more about the themes of the book rather than the structure of the book. So I think that came a bit of a surprise, because most of the people who've read the book took it very emotionally as opposed to appreciating the structure which I wanted. So that was surprising but very refreshing, because I think a good piece of literature is one that moves you emotionally, even if whether the story is complex or simple. So that came as a surprise, a very interesting one.
Do you feel that readers, while reading, have brought about their own childhoods in the story somehow?
To some extent, yes, like I did with the Bard Window, to some extent, because a writer can write best what they know or what they have seen. So yes, a lot of it is, unless you're attempting, even if you're attempting fantasy, you can only write about what you understand, what you can imagine. So if a writer is trying to, and then again, if a writer is deliberately trying to highlight something like I did in the book, then yes, they're absolutely definitely going to write about what they know or they've seen. Like, if if the book deals with, not my book, but but generally, if a book deals with feudalism, or it's a satire or a jab at society, or if whether it deals with feminism, I think that is something that is very personal to the writer, and they have experienced it personally or through the surrounding in some form or another. So yes, a writer writes about what they know best.
What does emotional honesty in writing mean to you?
Emotional honesty. I'll tell you. Yes, when it comes to acting, there's this technique that's called method acting. When the actor is trying to act, agar first kare, there's a scene where they have to act sad or happy. What they'll do is they'll recreate a memory where they felt happy or sad and act that way. So I think um, writing is the same. You recreate a memory and then you write from that point of view. So I think that is what honest and um emotional writing basically is.
Did you
Method
feel
acting, so you'd call it method writing.
method writing? Okay. Did you feel at any point that storytelling healed a part of you?
Hmm. Uh, I would not say healed, but I would say resolved. Yes. It answered a question in my head.
Since you already know what you're writing next and you're already writing, would you want to share any part of it with our viewers here?
The next book, I want to write fantasy. I love fantasy. Fantasy is my go-to genre. When I'm feeling anything, mera escape a fantasy. But I still feel like I'm not competent enough to write fantasy. So fantasy, I think, would be further down the lane. But the second book I'm writing with deals with a very, very a concept that is very um, dear to me, and it's not going to be as complex and as structured as this book. It's going to be very simple because the theme is very simple. It deals with the very, then again, simple yet complex sibling relationship. I have lost a sister to cancer. So after that, the remaining four of us, how we survived that, I it made me develop a form of appreciation for siblinghood, and that is what I want to write about.
I think somewhere even the appreciation, in spite of Marlene and Naima being different as a reader, I felt there was still a lot of appreciation of siblinghood came even between them. Like, there was an unknown bond still there, and there was so much to the two of them. I mean, it was surprising.
It was because there's this bond of the yin and a yang, very opposite, very contrasting, but still human enough, which drives on empathy, even from Naima's side at certain points. So Marlene's side, too, definitely, she's trying to win Naima's appreciation, but even from Naima's side, there are snippets in the book where you feel that way.
True. So, what kind of stories draw you into, like as a reader?
I enjoy the book's structure the most. I enjoy allegorical storytelling, a storytelling that leaves everything to the reader's interpretation, where the reader is showing rather than telling, no matter how simple or complex the themes are. Those, I guess, are the sort of stories that I enjoy.
If today someone is standing at their own barred window, what would you want to tell them after reading this book?
If someone is what?
If someone is today standing at their barred window and you have to tell them something, what would you want to tell them?
Power through. That's the only way.
What would you
So
like your
yes,
readers to carry with them long after the last page?
I think whatever the reader wants to carry long after the last page should be very personal to them, something that you know, because the book is designed in a way that is open to interpretation. Then again, so however the reader views what the the narrative, however they experience it, I think that should be the reader's personal perception, because everybody is going to read it from their point of view and from coming from their worldview. But I hope that it has the ability to resolve whatever they want resolution with.
Interesting. If the barred window could whisper one line to the reader who's about to pick up the book, what would that one line be?
Prepare for the unexpected.
And lastly and finally, what are you grateful for as a writer at this moment?
Huh. As a writer at this moment, I think it started with the barred window, but over time it has evolved into more than the barred window, more than my identity as a writer, but more than my identity as a human being, as somebody. Uh, I have a business now. I'm a coach, and a lot of other facets to me uh, now that exist. So what it has done to me as a writer and as a human being, as a business owner, whatever, is the belief that come what may, I will do it. I'll see it through. I no longer ask whether I'm good enough. I no longer rely on miracles, wishes. I no more wishful thinking. I just know whatever I want, I decide to do, I'm going to do it. So that, I think, is the belief that this has reinforced within me. I no longer struggle with, yes, I do struggle with self esteem. Of course, everybody does, but I no longer let it be a barrier or an obstacle in my path.
Thank you so much for your time, Samar, and thank you so much for writing this
Thank you,
story.
Shweta. Thank
It
you for having this conversation with me. And I am so glad that you enjoyed the book. And I hope that many people will. And India has been my prime market. I was like, I wish there wasn't this ban India or Pakistan ka, where the Pakistani authors cannot submit to India. हम लोग बेचारों के साथ क्या मतलब ये हुकूमतें करती हैं. But I really want the book to be in the hands of Indian readers, because yes, India is a very interesting market.
and
And
like
I
they
think
say,
something that's and I think they're very similar to Pakistani people. They're going
yeah,
to
we
resonate
are
a
the
lot
same.
with the
It's
book.
just a border that has come, but the
Absolutely.
art and culture is the same. और बुक ऑलरेडी
Absolutely.
यहाँ तक पहुंच चुकी है, हमने भी पढ़ी और बहुत सारे लोग पढ़ेंगे, because like they say the emotions are the same, be it India, be it Pakistan, be it anywhere. The culture,
See
the
it anyway.
emotion, the music, the
Absolutely.
art. हम सब लड़कियां ही हैं, हम खुद ही resilient हैं. We have our own journeys with our siblings. It's the same no matter where we are. So, and we all have a
Absolutely.
bad window.
Definitely.
So thank you for your time for Chitter Chatter and wish you best wishes. And I really hope
Thank you
and
so
lot of
much,
duas
Shweta.
for this story to reach to all the people and they interpret what works best for them.